Before we get started, I want to thank everybody who came to Carnival last Saturday. You got a show of hands who came? Oh, wow. Great. Well, our success with that parade is due mostly to your participation, and I'm very appreciative of it. Today's program is part of what we call Rotary Cares. It's a community service program in which we hope annually to bring speakers who are able to inform you and let you know what life is going to be like down here. And today we're fortunate to have Trina Brown from the U.S. Counselors Agency in San Jose and Sarah Schmidt from the Counsel General's office in Tijuana. I'm going to turn it over to Trina to give more introductions.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I want to especially thank Mr. and Mrs. Hathaway, Mr. and Mrs. Fowler, and Mr. and Mrs. Barber, who so graciously made this all happen with very short notice. This was originally, I believe, on the schedule for April, but since Sarah is here visiting, I thought it would be a wonderful opportunity for you to actually get better information than you might get from me. I want to give you the phone number of the consular agency in Los Cabos. If you would like to write it down, it is 624-143-3566. That agency serves U.S. citizens in the Southern Baja. We're open to the public from Monday through Friday, 9 to 2, except for Mexican holidays and U.S. holidays. Sarah is going to tell you about all the services we offer. However, even when the door is closed, we are available around the clock, any day of the year. I'm going to give you a San Diego number. It's the answering service number. You're welcome to call evenings, weekends, holidays, and I promise they will find me. That number is 619-692-2154. If you call the agency, our answering machine will actually give you that number if no one is there to answer.
Would you repeat that first phone number, please?
624-143-3566.
Thanks.
The agency is supervised by the U.S. Consulate General in Tijuana. That is one of the purposes of Sarah's trip, is to check up on the agency and make sure we're doing everything correctly to serve U.S. citizens in this part of the world. In case you're not familiar with what consular agencies are, it's a very old type of office that has existed ever since the U.S. became a nation. Traditionally in seaports where large numbers of U.S. citizens either lived, came as tourists, or came as sailors on ships. So they've been around a long time. Here in Los Cabos, in the Southern Baja, we meet all three criteria. We are very busy. The world has 40-something consular agencies, I believe. The largest number of those is in Mexico. I believe we have 14. And we all work very hard with limited personnel to cover a very wide range of needs. I'll pass the microphone to Sarah Schmidt. She is the Deputy Chief of American Citizen Services at the Consulate General in Tijuana. Thank you again.
I actually feel really strange sitting and talking, so if it's hard with you, I'm going to go ahead and stand up. I guess it's just, I was a teacher in a prior life, so it feels I need to assert my authority. As Trina mentioned, I'm coming here from the Consulate General in Tijuana. We supervise the consular agency in Cabo San Lucas, and we are basically charged with the consular services for both Baja Norte and Baja Sur. So that's kind of our area of operation. Each consulate has their own area that they're in charge of. If you're in Jalisco, for example, then you're under the Consulate General Guadalajara's supervision. And then Mexico City kind of takes over a huge chunk of the interior, and there's other consulates throughout the area. just to kind of give you, I mean, I have a feeling, especially since you're all finding yourselves living outside of the United States, that you're pretty savvy on a lot of items, but I know that, you know, I think every single Foreign Service officer has a story of telling their friends and neighbors that they were joining the Department of State, and everyone looks at you kind of funny and says, oh, where's that? Sacramento? And so just so you have a sense of what we do and where we are, in most countries in the world, every country that we have diplomatic relationships with, we have an embassy in the capital. The embassy has a couple of different missions that they oversee. One of them is to work with all U.S. government agencies that have a presence in the country, and we kind of control the actions of those agencies while they're inside the country. We also have consular offices in every embassy around the world. And so you often will hear of embassies versus consulates, and a lot of times people get confused. Consulates primarily exist to oversee American interests in a certain region. And every embassy has a consular section that functions as a consulate within the capital section. So, for example, in Mexico City, we have a very large consular section that oversees American citizen interests and visa operations within the interior of Mexico. The Consulate General in Tijuana is one of the top 10 consular sections in the world. One of the aspects of that is our visa production. We do a lot of non-immigrant visas for Mexican citizens, but probably what we're most well known for, anywhere you go in the world, is our American Citizen Services section. It's one of the biggest and most busiest in the world, as I'm sure you all can imagine. Tijuana has a huge number of Americans that come through. We have a lot of Native Americans that live in Mexico itself and in the Tijuana area that we kind of serve to assist. So that's a large part of what we do. But we are not an embassy. The embassy is in Mexico City. We are the Consulate General in Tijuana. And as such, there are certain items that only the embassy can assist with. The defense attache's offices are only in the embassy. We don't have the Department of Defense presence in the consulate at all. We do have some law enforcement agencies that are present in the consulate, but mostly those that have dealings with border issues, such as ICE, the immigration arm, the law enforcement arm for immigration services. So with that, there's kind of a distinction between what a diplomat does and a consular officer does. And really what's the most important, I think, for you to understand is that consular officers are here to protect American citizen interests. We have to do that within a certain range of limitations, namely the host country's laws. We can't function outside of the legal system of the country that we're in. We have to do everything within that legal system. We are held to the sovereignty of the nation that we're in this case Mexico, and we have very close relationships with Mexican authorities. We work very hard to cultivate our relationships at the federal, state, and local levels so that when American citizens have issues, that we can go directly to the person that is in the best position to assist us. I know that especially down in Baja Sur, we have a very independent-spirited American community who 90% of the time is able to handle their own affairs without our assistance. And we appreciate that to no end. You guys are well educated. You've educated yourself about how to live down here, and most of you did a significant amount of research and spent a significant amount of time in the area that you're living in before you moved here, and we appreciate that. Mostly what we find, we get called to assist our tourists, individuals who are coming down, usually their first or second time to Mexico, and so, you know, we are completely aware that that is not the majority of the American citizens that we have in this region. We know there is a silent majority among you that live and successfully live down here with minimal issues. That said, one of our concerns always, especially in areas like this, where you're so independent, that when things go wrong, we don't have a good enough picture because you have been silent and you've been able to take care of your own affairs. So when something comes up, sometimes we're taken unawares because if we don't have the information to begin with, we're kind of lost as to what it is that you need, which is why we like to do these trips when we're able to, and we're able to less and less, quite frankly, with the budget the way it is. Just basically every time we come down here, we're trying to do multiple things at once. I'm sure you all know that Secretary Clinton was in Los Cabos this past weekend, which is one of the primary reasons that I am here right now. And we're kind of multitasking every time we go out. So that said, what I kind of wanted to go over is our cradle-to-grave services that we provide for American citizens. One of the things that we do for American citizens that are born overseas is we document them. My own son has a consul report of birth abroad. He was born in Germany, and the consulate in Frankfurt actually issued his consul report of birth abroad. Not every child born to an American citizen overseas qualifies for one, and so one of our most difficult jobs is looking through nationality law and determining if every child that we see actually qualifies for this document. So that keeps us pretty busy. We also do passport work. We document people with United States passports. We have the capacity to do emergency passports, but we no longer print any nationality document in our offices. After September 11th, we moved all of those to U.S. production. So all of our stuff is actually printed in Tucson, Arizona right now, and then sent back to us. But should you need an emergency passport, we do print those. They're usually only good for about 3 months, and you can turn them in for a full validity passport as long as you haven't lost multiple passports within the last 10 years. I see a few smile out there, so I think some of you are familiar with this particular law, this particular regulation that pertains to passports. If you lose 2 within 10 years, we are by law instructed to limit the next one to a 1-year period. If you successfully hold on to that for that 1-year period, you are then eligible for another 10-year. So I know we see a lot of people that, especially down here, you're moving around, you're using your passports. Those are the people that tend to lose their passports. The people that get them, put them in their safety deposit box back in Kansas and don't take them out again for the next 9 years, frankly, they don't lose them. So, we know who our audience is that has these issues, and I wish there were a better solution for all of you. Unfortunately, at this point in time, that's kind of the law that we're operating under. Once people are in country, we also provide other services, such as notarial services. This is probably one of our most expensive product-for-product services, but we do provide the opportunity if you need a United States notarized document while you're overseas. Trina is actually authorized to do those in San Jose del Cabo, and if you're in Tijuana, frankly, I don't know why, if you can't, you would go to California where they're much cheaper, but they're $50 per seal. So, but if you absolutely have to have one, you have to have one. And so we do provide those services. If the notarial is for an issue that it's for a benefit that you'll be receiving from a state, local, or federal government agency, then we don't charge. So if you should need something notarized so that you can receive something from Social Security, for example, we don't actually need to charge you for those, and we can provide those notary services on an appointment basis. Right? We do. In Tijuana, we don't do appointments for notarials because we don't have as many, but she does a lot. Another service that we provide is, we kind of call these our emergency services. Technically, they're called special consular services, and they are services that we provide to American citizens that find themselves in trouble, frankly, usually, in the countries other than the United States. So in Tijuana, we have a lot of missing persons cases that we work on. We average about 50 to 60 missing persons cases per month. And we have an ongoing roster of a few hundred cases that have not been resolved. We're not law enforcement, so kind of our investigative operations are limited, but we do coordinate with the Mexican authorities who do the investigations, and we coordinate and speak to the families as these operations are ongoing.